Well, really, it's good to see everyone. Everybody's looking good. Mr. Myers is with us, and we'll hear from him. And Jennifer McKee, the Vice Chairwoman of our Helena School District Board of Trustees, is with us. She's going to introduce Gary and maybe give us a little preview on upcoming things. But I think we got a little time for an announcement or introductions. Just kind of chew the fat a little bit, as we used to say. So is anybody here for the first time? Any intros? Anybody like to? Who's pointing? Everybody's pointing at something. Oh, Annie. Yeah, Annie. There we go.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Renan Butcher.
I turned it off.
You're not?
Hello.
Hey, there we go.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Renan Butcher. I work for Montanans Organized for Education, which is a nonprofit that supports our public schools. And I also am running for the Helena School Board. So I just wanted to come introduce myself to all of you and hear your concerns and what you care about for Helena Schools. So thank you.
Very good. Ann, is that right?
Jenny.
Jenny.
Renan Butcher.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
No worries. Jenny, and then last name is Renan Butcher.
Oh, right. I saw it. Yes.
Thank you.
So, did you grow up in Helena, or what?
So I grew up in Colorado, but I came to UM for college and never left Montana.
Very good.
Yeah, I was recruited by Ron Whitmoyer to come student teach out in East Helena. So I came here right after college and have been here ever since. So.
Okay. And then what's the organization again?
I work for Montanans Organized for Education, which was founded by Moffy Funk. Yeah, so we work to support our local public schools. We do legislative advocacy, local advocacy, working on the school funding formula, help community members and parents get connected with their public schools and the legislature.
Well, we might call on you in a little while, speaking of the legislature and formula and setting the amount of state funding.
Sure, I'd be happy to take a stab at it.
Okay, well, I'm sure you know more than most of us who haven't been up in the halls all winter.
Yes, well, thank you so much.
Okay, well, welcome, Jenny.
Thank
really.
you.
Did we give her a hand? All right. And Evan, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Good morning, everyone. It was nice because I was light out this morning. I'm Emmett. I'm the Teen Services Librarian over at the Lewis and Clark Library. I have a lot of stuff to announce. April is, this is National Library Week. Yay! And then on Monday, I think it was, maybe Tuesday, the mayor declared it Libraries and Communities Month in the city of Helena, which we're celebrating with a series of events at the library as well as around town, all surrounding the release of this documentary called Free for All from PBS. So there was a screening last week. I'm losing track of the days. And tonight there's going to be a panel around public institutions, public good, and public service at the library. It'll be from 6 to 7:30, and yours truly will be emceeing it. It'll be my first panel. So I hope you all come down because I think it's going to be a really good conversation, and we're going to hear from some of our commissioners and talk about libraries.
All right, very good. Emma, how's your teen advisory group doing?
My teen advisory group has officially outgrown our small meeting room.
That's good. Right?
So we have retaken over the large meeting room because we keep getting new members, and they're just amazing, you guys. I like them so much.
Well, it was really nice when they were here, when you brought them here. We got to have a return visit one of these weeks. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Hello, good morning. I'm Danielle, the interim managing director at Grand Street. And tomorrow we open Lucky Stiff, the musical. It's going to be absolutely hysterical. If you've ever seen the movie Weekend at Bernie's, it's very much the same preface. And for those who know, Kevin Schoolor plays the dead body. So it's a show you don't want to miss. Also, this is my first time back after the gala. And I just wanted to thank everyone who joined us for the gala, who donated to the gala, at the gala. It was a fantastic kickoff as we announced our 50th season. Both the gala and Lucky Stiff were generously sponsored by Helena College. So we want to thank Helena College again for all of their help, all of their support. Great, so we're doing Lucky Stiff, and then right after Lucky Stiff, we have Junie B. Jones Jr. So if you don't have your tickets for either show yet, I have a little handout that has QR codes, and I'll be around after. Also, it's just a really great weekend for live theater in Helena. We have Lucky Stiff at Grand Street, but there's also The Children, which is happening at the Helena Avenue Theater through Ravensfeather, and Carroll College has a show, Suzette at the Seaside, I believe it's called. You could do an entire live theater weekend here in Helena, which is a pretty awesome thing. So we hope you will get out, support some live theater in Helena this weekend. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan. Congratulations on 50 years. Grand Street. Hey, Tim.
Good morning, all. I just a quick announcement. Next week is Empty Bowls, and the event is sold out. But I do want to let you know that if you want to, you can participate in our auction, which will be online this year. Lots of great stuff in there. You can just go to Helena Food Share's event calendar and click through there, and you can get to see that. We're super grateful for Stockton Bank's support this year, all the restaurants and bakeries who provide food, and all of the support of the community. So we're seeing an increase in need as the weeks go by at Helena Food Share, and every single one of those dollars helps. So hop online and participate in that silent auction. There's lots of great stuff.
All right, Tim. 62% local. It's a local deal.
Yes.
That's neat. Emily, I'm just going to ask how things are going.
We're busy.
Yeah.
At United Way, we're gearing up for Spirit Service. We're done taking applications. I think we're up to about 25 applications for homes. So we're currently building pools of volunteers. We usually take about 15 houses, so we're trying to weed down which houses we're going to take. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, we're still building out volunteer teams. The work day is May 16th. Hopefully the weather is good that day. Otherwise we have to push it out a little bit. So Jeff Busher at our office is building out the teams, and we're also still taking sponsorships for all the equipment that we need. Usually it's a lot of mowing, so we'll borrow lawn mowers and weed trimmers. Sherman-Williams donates all the paint, but we're always looking for other things. We'll need random things throughout that week, power washers and lots of power tools and things like that for Spirit Service. And that's where we help people that need minor home repairs and yard work around the community. But we also have a couple houses way out by the lake and way out in the valley, so we need teams that are willing to travel a little bit this year. So if anybody's willing to help out with that. Also, the Community Health Improvement Plan is in its final stages of details being worked out before it goes out to the public. So if anybody's interested in reviewing that and giving feedback, it is on the Lewis and Clark Public Health page. If you go to that website and you scroll down through their tabs and you find the Healthy Together Steering Committee tab, you can actually go and find the Community Health Assessment and the draft Community Health Improvement Plan, and you can look through that and give feedback on that page before the final draft is complete. And the final draft comments are due by April 18th.
Coming right up. Well, that Spirit of Service is a great day. May 16th, weather permitting. It'll be nice. It'll be great that day. That's really, it's a neat thing. Although when I was involved in it, we never got power tools. All I ever got was a
They
rake.
don't let me touch them either.
All right. John Moore.
Thanks. I'm John Moore. I'm on the board of the Helena Area Community Foundation. And one of the main
events for that foundation is granting money to other nonprofits in Helena. It's one of the main purposes. So on Tuesday, we had our evaluation meeting. We had 61 applications for grants totaling $204,000, and we had 67,715 go away. So it's about 1/3 of what was requested. It was a tough meeting. But we got through that. It's not time yet until the board ratifies that. This is just the evaluation committee. But it was a good day, and I always learn a lot about what great nonprofits are doing in Helena. 61 is just a small portion of the total number of nonprofits in Helena. So it was good to be able to do that. By the way, that pool of money that was granted, some of that comes from Helena Area Community Foundation, some from Lewis and Clark County, and some from the city of Helena. So it's a pool of money. And we do that in an open meeting because it's public funds being dispersed. So in fact, at 5 o'clock on Tuesday, so if you're a member of the public, you can attend the board meeting when we're discussing that as well. It'll be a public meeting at that time as well. So, just wanted to update you on what the Helena Area Community Foundation is doing. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks, John. How's Emily Frazier doing? Your director.
Pardon me?
How's Emily doing?
Oh, she's doing great.
Your director.
Yeah, she's doing great. Yeah, she had a car accident
Whoa.
6 months ago. And it set her back a bit, but she's doing great. So, very helpful.
Well, please give her our best. Good. Well, somebody mentioned Dean Bauman, and she's here with us. I wonder if you've been hobnobbing around with the regents and all that. We got a new president at Montana State University.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Montana State University and Montana Tech have new leadership. It was just announced. Both of those were announced this week. At MSU, it's a familiar face. For those of you who may recall Brock Tessman. He was the Deputy Commissioner of Higher Education for several years in Montana. Took a presidency in his home state of Michigan, but he was homesick, and 2 years later, he is now our new president at MSU. So that's, I think, great news for the state. And at Montana Tech, this is cutting out, I'm gonna slaughter her last name, but Dr. Karen Machiavelli, I think it's pronounced. She was with the NSF, and she has been in higher ed for a long time. She has just accepted the chancellor position at Montana Tech. So some new leadership.
Excellent.
I'll give you just a couple quick Helena College announcements. It's a great weekend for the arts. We have all of the theater we just talked about. Helena College is also really proud of our art showcase, as we are every year. Saturday night we have that awards reception starting at 6 o'clock. So if anybody wants to pop in, we have lots and lots of amazing local sponsors who donate funds to provide scholarships or cash awards for the artists. And so that'll be awarded. There's a cash bar, there's music, there's snacks, there's an auction, and then there's great art to enjoy. So that is this Saturday here at the college starting at 6. And Friday night at the Holter is, as folks know, the Youth Electrum opens, as does the capstone for our graduating Helena College artists. So we have 4 artists this year, and there's a reception starting at 4:30 to honor those artists. And following that, every year the Holter also hosts what's called Across the Divide, and it is faculty from different units of the university system displaying their art. So faculty artists. There are 4 from Helena College who will be displayed, as well as others from around the state. So that starts at 6:30 on Friday night. So lots going on with the arts this weekend.
Very good. It's great you're involved with that. Yeah. Thank you, Sandy. All right. Well, I've heard the word commissioner a couple times, and I see a commissioner here. Mr. Hunthausen. How's the county, Andrew? Commissioner Hunthausen?
Thank you, man. I was hiding out over here. You saw me.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Andy Hunthausen, Lewis and Clark County Commission, and great to be here. First of all, support your public schools and your library. Lots going on at the county. I'm happy to answer questions, but we have everything in every category, so I'll let the sheriff speak for his world. But from helping with the school election coming up to implementing a new motor vehicle software that the state has just rolled out.
That's a big one.
That's big. Second round of taxes are coming up in terms of collecting property taxes.
Excellent.
Remember the snafu we had in November, December in terms of getting that out on time. So there's a lot of technical difficulties with people that have turned over, so challenging in those areas, but that's coming. You name it, we're working on it. We have a group that has been meeting weekly, judges, county attorney's office, sheriff's office, detention center, commissioners, others, our criminal justice services folks, working on trying to reduce the population in the jail and having lasting things that might impact that population. And so there's been a list of recommendations made to our Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and so we're working on those kinds of issues. You name it, every category we've got something going on. We're plowing roads and getting ready for the spring, and it's flood season as well, so we're trying to be careful. And of course, we extend our services up to Lincoln, Augusta, to York. We've had challenges in York with that last snowstorm, and fires coming, the whole bit. So I can talk about whatever you want.
Well,
Lots going on.
well, it sounds like it, Andy. Well, keep up the good work and keep riding your herd on it, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, lots. Not too many counties in the United States have got the Continental Divide running right down the middle of it, which I guess you call it an externality. You know, it's just something that you deal with, but it's a challenge. Speaking of, Sheriff, how's your end of the county?
Really good, sir.
All right.
Standing over here for the camera. Anyway, it's going well, Jim. There's a lot of things, a lot of challenges that come up. We're either hiring, very few times we're firing, so that's a good job. But people will move on. They'll find other vocations in the detention center. If you feel like you're really not having a purpose, come talk to us. We'll get you a job in the detention center, and it will help out. You'll feel good about yourself. You'll feel like you shouldn't have been whining before you got to me. So it is a hard job, but it's a necessary job. The deputies are doing well. You know, that's why Andy said I could talk for myself. We can always use a little bit bigger budget. Everybody's
Commissioner treats you all right?
Yeah, you know. At least he sit and listen to me. So I gotta say thanks to him. So legislative session, we're trying to survive that. There's a few things we're hoping the governor will sign that has to do with retirement. That when you get 20 years that you can retire no matter your age, they changed that to if you got a job when you were 20, retired at 40, they changed it to you couldn't get your retirement until you were 50.
Yeah.
And that was a real disincentive to come work for us. We're trying to get that changed. It's on the governor's office, so if you happen to be having coffee with him, say, go ahead and sign that. Be a good guy.
Put it over the top.
Yeah, just right there. We have a good working relationship with the Montana National Guard. They've been helping us train. General Ronick has really been a man of his word, step forward, and if we need something, he'll help with aviation assets, things like that. So just for training, he can't get involved in anything else. But what I want to say about Lewis and Clark County is demonstrating partnership from local to state to federal. We're not rich enough that we can go around and say we're king. So the partnership that you allow has been an awesome thing, and that works out through the whole state and through the West. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, I got 720. 2025 is a big year. Haley.
Well, it's Haley McKnight. I sit behind the computer. I send the emails. But I wanted to announce today, I'm really, really happy about this. I'm running for City Commission. I've been thinking about this for a long time just because I love Helena so much. I came to Montana as a Miracle Vista and just never really left. I own a small business, I manage a small business. I am the president of Helena Young Professionals, and I care so deeply about this community. I can't imagine living anywhere else. And so I'm not going to take too much time because we've got a lot of important things on the docket, but I just want to say I hope for your vote. And I'm here to stand for your parks, your transit, your downtown, and I hope to be your commissioner. So thank you so much.
All right, well, how about that? One of our own, so to speak. Well, congratulations, Haley. That's a big step. But yeah, very good. Well, we got a big year. I mean, we got the school stuff coming on, city elections. I think Haley's the first commissioner candidate to throw her hat in the ring. I think Commissioner Emily Dean has announced for mayor, right? Right. She's what? She's on Zoom right now. Oh, she's on Zoom. All right. Well, Commissioner Dean. Oh, there you are. So, you took a big step. Anything to say? Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I did throw my hat in the ring for mayor. I feel grateful to have Mayor Collins' support, as well as a couple other commissioners and members of the public. I really want to be focusing on improving some of our city services, really modernizing our infrastructure. I think that we've gotten off to a great start with all of the work we've done through our ARPA funding. But all of that funding gave us a chance to understand where some of those huge deficiencies are. And we have a lot of work to do in terms of infrastructure. So that's something I'll be focusing on. And then really ensuring that we have all the support we need to continue to make our city even more vital and vibrant. And all the little questions, if anyone has thoughts or questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm excited and excited to keep up working hard for Helena and achieving some of the things I know that we can in the next couple of years.
All right. Well, very good, Commissioner. Thank you. You know, I confess I always forget about the people on Zoom. So, Haley, thanks for reminding me. And you know, we'll spend more time with the commission candidates in the weeks ahead. So. We'll be talking to you more if that's okay, Emily. Commissioner.
It's the best job in the world.
Yeah. Very good. Well, you're prepared. All right. Well, time is flying by. Let's get Jennifer McKee up here if we could. And Jennifer,
thank you very much. I really am appreciative of the opportunity to speak before you guys and introduce. Is it on? You take it out and hold it close. I'm not gonna get away with this. I'm gonna have to stand. All right. Okay. Well, my name is Jennifer McKee. I am the vice chair of the Helena Public Schools Board of Trustees. I like to put the vice and vice chair, but not all the time. This is Mr. Gary Myers. He's the head of the IT department for Helena Public Schools, and as you know, we have a tech levy on the ballot in May. But I wanted to zoom out a little bit before Gary took over and talk all about the importance of what's in that levy, because our tech levy is really a story about the way Montana pays for public schools. And until you understand the kind of that framework, the absolute necessity of this levy can get a little lost. So I'll try to make this super snappy, and I try to condense Montana school funding into 5 minutes, so stay with me. We kind of think of districts as you tax the people in the district to pay for the services that the district that provides, and it's paid for with property taxes. With public schools, it doesn't really work that way. It kind of did before, but what ended up happening when more of the value, or more of the money for public schools came locally, communities in Montana that had higher value property or that just passed more of their levies, then they would have schools that were better than those that had low value property or didn't pass their levies. So there was a lawsuit in 2002, I think it was, that said that that's not fair. It's not fair to every kid. It's not equal across the board. And the Montana Constitution requires that every kid gets, quote unquote, a free quality public education. So that prompted a complete redesign of the way schools are paid for in Montana. And now you do pay your local property taxes, but it doesn't really matter how much you pay. All that money goes to the state, and unfortunately, it doesn't go into a Helena Public Schools account, it just goes into a state account. And then schools get money back according to a formula, and it has absolutely no relationship to how much local property taxes are already being paid. You only get what's in the formula. And so there's two big pieces, and I am boiling out a ton of details. I know there's people in this room who know a lot about school funding, so if I've missed a detail, they are right, but I'm just trying to boil it way down. You get a certain amount of money as a district for just existing, and it's called the basic entitlement, and then you get money per kid, average number belonging, or A and B. The basic entitlement it's not doing its job. Helena gets the same amount of money as Townsend, and I think we've got 13 schools, 13 buildings that we're running, and Townsend has maybe 4. Like, it just doesn't really cover the cost of doing business for a district. Budgets are balanced on A and B, or the kids who are in the school. So that kind of sounds like it should make sense. I mean, one of the number one problems is there's not enough money in the system, period, at the end. But the other problem is Montana has had a declining birth rate for decades. After 5 years, that declining birth rate turns into fewer kindergartners. And then you have all the same overhead that you had in a class of 21 kindergartners, but now you only have like 15. And so you're actually losing money year over year. But you're falling even further behind because utilities go up, and the teachers deserve a raise, and their health insurance goes up, and your insurance goes up. And so schools all across the state are just falling deeper, deeper, deeper into a hole every single year. And we are no different. COVID money kind of pushed the wolf away from the door, and that was sort of the point of COVID money, that they didn't want schools to have multiple crises at once. Helena saved a bunch of its COVID money. We've been living off of it for the last 3 years, even though we've been making cuts. We've saved millions of dollars of COVID money, so those cuts were more gradual than they would have been if it had just been right off a cliff. But also built into that funding formula is the rationale behind that law was to equalize funding across the state. So the intent is all of your money needs to come from the operation budget, the general fund, and that money comes from the state. And you are very, very restricted on what you're allowed to raise outside of that. There are tiny, granular little allotments of quote-unquote operational levies, but they are nowhere near the task of actually filling in the hole that we're all falling into every single year. So what districts do across the board is there are certain levies that are legal. An outright operational levy is just not legal. But you can have a tech levy, you can have a safety and security levy, you can have things that are around the side. And those are honest levies, like there is tech money coming out of our operational budget, but what we're trying to do is pull every single dollar out of that operational general fund budget and pay for it in some other way. So that was our safety and security levies last year. That's what, and tech, that's what that was trying to do, is pull out every single dollar that was legal to pull out of this constrained, shrinking, inadequate general fund budget and pay for it locally. Those went down. I don't blame anyone who voted them down because that's for a million reasons. I just skip right over that. But where we're at now is that we're paying for tech out of our operational budget. But that operational budget needs to pay for teachers or they will be laid off. So this is an effort to pull all the tech money out of our operational budget and pay for it locally and preserve that constrained amount of money for what it needs to be doing, which is educating kids in classrooms and running our schools and keeping them healthy. Helena Public Schools are truly extraordinary. They punch above their weight class all the time. And we have one of the poorest schools in the state with Bryant, and it met its year-long student achievement goal in the first 3 months of the year. And that doesn't happen by accident. That is just an extremely productive, wonderful public school system. And right across the street, Helena High also has a high concentration of poverty for a high school, and yet it has some of the highest ACT scores in the state. And that, again, that doesn't usually happen. And the ACT is given to every kid in Montana. Those are not just college-bound kids. That's everybody in that school. So this system is just, it's running as fast as it can, and it's doing extraordinary work, and it needs to keep those constrained dollars doing that job and not paying for computers and licenses or so on. We need those computers and licenses, and if the levy doesn't pass, we'll still get most of them, but we'll just have to carve out and just, like, it'll be layoffs in the future if we don't get the tech levy passed. That was a lot. I hope I can next that down. And I'll turn it over to Gary because he knows the nuts and bolts about tech, and I don't.
Thanks, Trustee McKee. I appreciate that introduction. I have to say, so when I heard the introduction about the microphone, about keeping my voice close to the microphone, I was a little nervous because I don't use microphones a lot. I was a classroom teacher, and so I have a pretty good fill-up-the-room voice, and so a microphone is not something I'm super familiar with. It. So I was like, oh, am I going to be able to, get the microphone to work the way I want it to work? And in the back of my head, I have to tell you, I heard my wife's voice saying, generating hot air has never been your problem, so you're not going to have a problem getting this microphone to work. So I just want to put that out there that I think it's probably going to be fine. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself, just to kind of give you a little bit of background. My family moved to Helena in 1974 when my dad became the director of the librarian for the Montana Historical Society. And so I started kindergarten at Smith Elementary, and then my family moved to Dillon. I was in Dillon for a good part of my school. We moved back here when I was a 7th grader, and so I attended Helena Middle School, and I graduated from Helena High in 1992. So Helena's been my hometown for a while. I feel really connected to this place. It's really important to me. Taught in the Helena School District, moved my family back here in 2004 after going to college, and Helena's kind of been a place that I come back to, and I think that's an important part of our hometown aspect. You get connected to a place, and you stay connected to a place because it and the people in it really matter to you. So that's a little bit of background for you. I'll talk about that just briefly. And the other thing that I want to mention, kind of before I get into my technology presentation here and talk about what technology means to the Helena School District. The thing that I want to mention about the levies, because I think it's important to note, is that we did run levies last year, and those levies were voted down. And I think it's important to talk about that because I want for everyone to know, I think it's important to know that we responded to that. We understand, and I think that's key. I live in this community too, so like everybody else in this community, I feel that property tax burden, and it's large. And I mentioned that I moved back to Helena in 2004. That was when coincidentally, that was when our last technology levy was passed. And, my taxes, like everyone else's, I looked at the bill, actually, since I started, campaigning for levies, I've kept my tax bill in my bag. I actually keep it in my bag as a reminder that that's something that needs to be talked about and thought about. So I have that there. And I think the reason why I do that is because I want everyone to understand that it's extremely important to me to be a conservative, proactive steward of public money. So I take that responsibility very seriously. So when I put together estimates of what we need to keep the technology running for the Helena School District, I'm making those estimates conservative. And the other thing that I want to talk about just quickly, kind of as an introductory note, is that for the technology department, the educational technology department at the Helena School District, it's not about devices in front of kids. Education in our Helena Public Schools is about the connections that teachers make with kids, and that's how education works. And the vision that we have for technology is using technology to make that connection happen, and to empower it, to make it more powerful. So that's what we're trying to do with our technology. So I just want to get that up there and talk about it a little bit. All right, so I mentioned that the tech levy that we currently have is a perpetual levy. It was passed in 2004. The thing about technology is that if you look at the technology that existed in 2004 that we were using in schools, versus the technology that we were using in schools when I graduated from Helena High in 1992, there wasn't really that big of a difference. So it's about the same number of computers. There were computer labs. We did have wireless networks. But since 2004, that technology impact in our community, the way that technology has permeated every aspect of our culture, of our workforce, it's changed really dramatically. So we have a levy that was designed to address technology needs in 2004, and the reality is that the needs of our students and of our teachers have just changed so much in that span of time that we're no longer able to meet those needs. And so what's happened over the years is that we've had to, the amount that we spend on technology has far outpaced the amount that we have in our existing technology levy. Generates about $1.1 million split between the elementary and high school district. And the reality is that in order to make our technology funding work, we really need about 4 times that. And that's what I mostly want to talk about today. So why 4 times that? Well, one of the biggest things to think about is software as a service. So this is something that really, evolved in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and has changed really dramatically. Everything that has technology in it has to be licensed. And so when people think about technology, they think about laptops that students use. They think about projectors that are in classrooms. And those things are expensive. Expenses, absolutely. But also, we have to license all of the safety and security components that keep our buildings safe and keep our students safe. So, for example, the fob readers that you, when you come into a building, you scan your code so that we know who you are when you come into a building. That requires a license. We have clock speakers in each of the rooms so that we can share announcements when we have emergencies in the buildings. Those clock speakers, each one requires a license. So all of those things, all of those licensing things, we couldn't have possibly envisioned those in 2004. That type of licensing didn't exist. And now it's everywhere. Paid for a license per year, either per student or per teacher every year. And that licensing model just makes it a lot more expensive. So the bulk of the money that we're asking for, it's about 30% or so of it goes to pay for those licensing things. Software licensing for programs that just make stuff work. Another third of it is to support the infrastructure and devices that we have in place. So, every once in a while you have to update your wireless access points and your routers. That stuff just has to be updated, and it's, we do it conservatively. We really, as a district, we tend to hold on to things, for a long time because they're the things that we have and they're expensive to purchase. So you have to update them periodically. So a third of that is replacing wiring, updating routers. And you know this, the longer that because we all see this with our personal devices, so the longer that you have a device, it's kind of like the slower it gets. And that's the reality with all devices. So it impacts laptops again, it impacts wireless access points, all those things that we have spread out in the 16 buildings that we have around the district. And then the final third is all the support that's necessary to keep all of that working. So we have a very small technology department. There's 12 folks in the department, including myself. And the number that we like to kind of talk about with that is that's really one technology support person for every 700 users. Because we're supporting, all the students of the district, all the teachers of the district, all the staff. So it's a small staff for what we're doing, but they work really hard to be as effective as possible. We've tried to streamline that and keep it as functioning as possible. So, but again, there is a cost of having those folks available to do that, and so that's a portion of this. So this technology levy ask is much, much smaller than last year's technology ask. In fact, it's less than a quarter of what we were asking last year. And we adjusted that, like I said, because we want to be responsive to what we heard from voters last spring. And what we heard from voters when we got feedback on that was, the first thing was, this is too big of an ask. This is too much. Property taxes are too high. We can't support this because it's too expensive. So we made an adjustment for that. The second thing that we heard from voters, which I think is important to mention, is that they really don't want to support perpetual levies. And so I'm happy to report that the technology levy, if passed, this is a 10-year levy, so it would have to be voted on again in 10 years. Also, our existing perpetual levy gets rolled into that. So what we would end up with would be a levy that has a 10-year sunset on it, so that it will run for the next 10 years. And I want to talk a little bit, I have to tell you a quick story about that connecting piece, about what technology does and how the world has changed. And I got a few stats about, what skills we need from our students in order for them to be successful in the workplace. Because at the core of it, that's really why we do this. We want for kids, when they leave our school system, to be able to move into a career or to move on into higher education and be prepared for that. And a huge component of that is technology skills. There are literally a tiny sliver of jobs that don't require some level of technology skills. So I looked at some stats, both nationally and in Montana, and the national stats that I pulled from the Department of Labor really indicate, there's about like 92% of jobs that are out there require some level of technology skills. So it's a massive percentage. And then the Montana stats that I had, which I thought were even more interesting, was that the folks that were surveyed, it's a Montana Chamber of Commerce survey from 2022, most of them were feeling the number of skilled workers that had the technology skills that were necessary out there was not high enough. There weren't enough of those workers. So that really emphasizes for me that the work that we're doing with technology is really important, and that's why we want to support it. And there's a couple different types of things. We probably have read about the Boeing grants, and we talked about that last year. So we have, very specific career-focused technology tools that we support in our schools that impact a number of students. But beyond that, we also have broader technology use skills. And I think another thing that I want to clear up, because this is a question that a lot of folks have, is like, well, we see that kids are on their phones all the time. They're using technology all the time. And that's true. I have my own kids, and I know that was absolutely the case. That technology is there, and it's actually a challenge that I think we're trying to address as a community, because sometimes that's pulling them away from experiences that they need to have in person. But the type of experiences that I'm talking about are learning to use your technology in a professional environment, and it's different. It's not the same. You need to understand how to do that in a workplace and what that looks like and how it works. And we want kids to have the skills that they need to be able to move into the career workplace or into college and be set for that. So, I think that's where I kind of like to wrap up. I'm a school district employee, so I can't ask you to support the levy, but I would love to provide as much information as I possibly can on that. So if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer them. Yes?
I have a question on the Chromebooks. In the past, kids used to have books in school. And I don't see books anymore. I don't see kids carrying books home anymore, but I do see the Chromebook coming home. Could you speak to the necessity for Chromebooks? Because I know that's part of the levy that you're asking for. And I also know that these kids have to do their homework on those Chromebooks. And so this is a bigger deal, this technology, than just asking for money, because these kids really need to have this access to those types of technology in order to do their homework. It's a big deal. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. It is a big deal. And you're right. Most of our curricular components, especially at the middle school and high school level, are only available on the internet. So that's how that licensing has changed. You're right. When I went to middle school, I got a big stack of 6 textbooks, and that's what I carried back and forth home. Now, all that 6 textbook material is on websites on the Chromebook students can access securely. So yes, curriculum delivery has changed, and we have to have Chromebooks to support that. Those Chromebooks, I will say that you can use a Chromebook. Technically, they're licensed for about 7 years. But 7 years of being carried back and forth in a backpack is really tough on a Chromebook. And so, yes, they need to be updated, they need to be refreshed, it's absolutely critical, and we want everybody to have access to that technology because they, like you said, they need those resources to be successful. Yeah, and I'll tell you kind of a cool story. My wife's a math teacher at C.R. Anderson, and one of the things that changed during COVID, and to be clear, nobody wants to go back to doing that. I think that's really important. Everybody, thinks about COVID, and it is what it is. But anyway, so my wife teaching 6th grade math, we used Microsoft Teams for running assignments and turning in homework and things online. And my wife has, with Teams being set up, her students can contact her, via the Teams messaging. They can communicate with their teachers that way. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've been, out and about in the evening or on a weekend, and she'll get a message that'll come through her phone. She's got Teams on her phone, doesn't have to have a computer. So the message will come in and they'll be like, Ms. Douglas, how do you calculate the area of a circle? Because those aha moments for kids, those learning moments, they don't just happen between 8 and 3 when kids are in buildings. They happen whenever kids happen to have that moment. And so, she really enjoys the chance to make those connections on math using that technology in those types of situations. And it's been super powerful. And I see that happen with lots of teachers at many different levels. So it's great. Yeah.
So this one's probably for Jennifer. Sorry. So the legislature currently has at least one major education funding package in debate, the STARS Act. I think it's $100 million for teacher pay. Assuming that passes, how would that intersect with the discussion you had about the general school funding picture? Like, would that address those concerns or not?
Can you guys just hear me?
No.
Usually criticized for being too loud. That's a really great question, and one that we heard last night. Also, I mean, if you guys are following along, there is a conversation around the potential closure of Hawthorne Elementary, and that is honest to God is driven by the exact same problem that is prompting this levy. The STARS Act is real money, and everyone in education is super thankful for it. It is going to, it's earmarked for teacher pay, and in our current budget projections, as we look down the road, we're hoping that it passes because we've kind of got it built into our budget that that's how we're going to pay for teachers and give them their raises. But even with that, we're still $2.6 million in the hole. And one of the reasons that we're $2 million in the hole is because we used that COVID money as a gentle glide path out of our crisis. So $2 million of that is just what we borrowed. Like we're currently balanced on our savings. But the STARS Act will truly help. I mean, that is real, but it won't solve our structural problem.
And actually, that's a good chance. It kind of dovetails a little bit with the Chromebook question. So because the current technology levy generates only $1.1 billion, we have spent each year, we use COVID funds for a bit, so we have emergency connectivity funds and ESSER funds to supplement some of these technology purchases, so buying teacher laptops and Chromebooks and other things. But now that money, has been spent, we're in a situation where we're impacting directly our interlocal fund by close to $1 million each year because we need to spend that just to keep our infrastructure running. And the other thing about that I think is important to note is that though that sounds like, well, it's $1 million a year that you're running that, the reality is that we're using that $1 million to keep our infrastructure running. We're not running any sort of device replacement cycle. So basically we're in a situation where if something breaks, we won't have that technology anymore. And by something breaks, you kind of envision a student not having a Chromebook, but it's that, but it's also could be a wireless router, and the wireless internet would go out in the building. So there are those kind of expenses that you really need that infrastructure to work, and so by not replacing any devices, it's put us in a tight spot, and so that's one of the reasons why we're asking for this levy.
Hi, thank you both. One of the things that I've heard talked about, let me give you an umbrella here. Do you have your crystal ball handy? Because we talked about how much things have changed from 2004 to now. And there are those of us who believe, for example, that a college education, at least a community college education, two-year education, is anymore a fundamental education. It didn't used to be. I'm old, and back in the day, high school was plenty. But now we're bombarded with information, including disinformation and misinformation. So being effective consumers of information, critical consumers of information, that takes a lot more time and effort, I believe, for our students. So looking into the future, does this levy for 10 years, what kinds of changes do you anticipate, and how do you think this levy will help with those kinds of things as well?
Oh, that's a great question. I will say that people ask me a lot about, well, with this new technology levy being a 10-year levy, you no longer will have any perpetual levy. And I think your question sort of gets to the heart of that really having a perpetual technology levy is a little bit silly because technology does change so dramatically. And so I do think that a 10-year levy makes more sense from the perspective of you really need to evaluate that every 10 years and see if you can accomplish what you need to accomplish with that amount or if more is required. Also, you want to be in cycle with state funding things, so I'm hopeful that there may be changes at the state level or federal level where some of this funding will change. I'm not optimistic about it, but it's something that you hope for. So I do think that that's a reasonable time span for that. And I also, it's a good note to talk about, you're absolutely right that those are the conversations and the changes that teachers and administrators are making right now. That's the technology skills that I'm talking about, the things that we need students to be able to do to be, productive members of society, really, to have the skills that you need. And one of those key components that I now see permeating all of what teachers are doing, especially in language arts and in government and in history, they are adapting their instruction using this type of technology to help kids acquire those skills. So to help them read critically and think critically and have conversations. Those things, they've never been more important. And now they have a technology side to them that, like you said, you can create a video in 15 minutes that looks like somebody else and says whatever you want it to say. And that's alarming. That's really scary. And so we need for our kids to have the skills to be able to discern that misinformation, to analyze it critically, and technology is a key component for that. And there's we talk a lot about AI and about changing things that are happening, and it's like there is no substitute for solid, good, critical thinking people. That's what we need. That's the technology skills that we need. Technology can help you do that. It's not a substitute for having a great conversation with your teacher about what that looks like and how to do that, or with your parents, or with the folks that you work with or go to school with every day. But yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do, and that's why this is critical.
I wanted to know if you got any feedback of why the past levies didn't pass. Because when you see it on the ballot, it says technology levy and, what's the other one called? Safety and security, and then they fail, and then 6 months later, or whatever, teachers get laid off. And I don't know if that came as a shock to other people or not, but it didn't say on the ballot, keep teachers. Because people answer differently. So feedback, did you hear any feedback from it?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit too. We did. I think that's really a difference between the levy proposal that we ran last year and this year's levy proposal. So the proposal that we ran last year, like Jennifer McKee talked about a little bit, was about preserving programs. And so a lot of that, the safety and security levy was a much larger component than the technology component. And a lot of that, again, was about if you have a safety and security levy, the funds that you would spend on safety and security in other ways can then be spent for preserving programs. And so that was a component to last year's levy ask, was about preserving those programs. And we felt when we put together that proposal that we wanted to give folks a chance to say, okay, this is important to us as a community and we want to continue the programs that we have. And I think that our takeaway from that honestly was, like I said, that the ask was just too high. And that was the feeling that we heard about, from organizations as we were around the community and conversations that we had was just, we want to support schools, we believe schools are important. I hear that from so many different people. And also, anyone you talk to will have a story about a connection they have with a school or a connection they have with a teacher, so that's critical. But the reality is that people live the life that they can do, and the tax burden was large. And it was an unfortunate timing piece with the reevaluations and everything that happened with property taxes last year. So that was the message, was just, we want to support schools, it's important, but it's too much. And so when we were looking at our ask this year, we were like, well, we got to look at critical services and critical components that we need, and what's the amount that lets us function with those critical services, and that's what the ask has to be. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I think it's about messaging, right? It's like, what are you messaging to people? And if it says technology and security, no. But if it said teachers and kids, yes.
Well, it's actually illegal to have an honest levy in Montana. The problem, that's the problem right there. It really is. We need operational funds. I mean, the reality is a Microsoft license is not an add-on to any organization in the modern world. We're paying for it as an add-on because the school funding formula does not encompass what it actually takes to educate children in period. Today or 10 years ago. It doesn't have enough money in the system, and with declining enrollment, it's just draining every single year. But you are right. It's like, I think the messaging was one of the key problems. I think there were lots of problems. Just explaining school funding is a 10-minute job. So that's one of the problems right there. That, like, to have this conversation where we've got time and the opportunity to explain to you guys how this whole thing goes together does not go on a mailer very easily that goes into someone's mailbox. So that's part of the problem right there. That people just don't really understand how starved the public education system is, and that everyone's trying to like tunnel around the main problem through all these little ways. But even if you did, you can't name it what it is. We need an operational levy. We need more money in the system to pay for schools. You can't run an operational levy. And here's another example of how dishonest it is. I mean, one of our number one problems in raw dollars is the federal government is supposed to pay 40% of the cost of special education in America. It is required to offer special education services, and it's also moral. It is our moral vision as a people to do that. But instead, they pay like 17%. They just shortchange us and don't follow their own law all the time. Well, the Montana School Funding Formula does not pick up the slack, but that the moral and legal obligation is still there, so the first thing that every school district in Montana does is backfill that hole. It's $4.5 million in Helena. We wouldn't be here if we were just paying for special ed, but you can't even run an honest special ed levy. I mean, if you just put before the people of Helena, hey friends, do you want to pay for special ed? That's gonna pass. No one's going to be like, I don't know how I feel about vulnerable children. I mean, but you can't even ask it. Like, it just all gets kind of like ground into the hamburger, and it's very easy to say, they're not doing their job, or they're just wasting the money, or my property taxes went up. I mean, I totally get that. I mean, I totally understand that. And the property tax piece is very confusing because the property taxes went up, and some of it was levied for schools. The counties fought that, and they said, hey, if you're not putting any more money back out to schools, why should we give you more money for it then? Why should we tax our own people again if you're not going to give it back to our schools? And they lost. So that's why we got that second property tax bill. And that bill came out right around the same time that the levies, that the ballots showed up in the mail. And I do not blame people one iota for looking into their mailbox and thinking, I'm literally paying more in taxes for schools. Why are you asking me for more on top of it? It was totally confusing. It was terrible timing. It was not intentional. But there's a big disconnect that what you're paying to the state for your property taxes that's labeled schools on your bill is not actually coming back to your local schools. Your local schools are either just cutting, and that is across the board. I mean, there's layoffs all over the place. The elementary school that I went to in Billings, where my nephew went, it closed last year. And it was just about money. So I think it was very complicated why people voted those levies down. They are confusing because the law requires us to tunnel around the main problem and not talk honestly about it, or if you do, it's in some forum where you've got 40 minutes to lay bare the problem, and it's really hard to message and advertise around that. And it's also just that people are squeezed. I mean, everything's more expensive, inflation was high, property tax bills were going up, and it was just like, you don't get a choice about your second property tax bill that came in the mail, but you do get a choice about these levies. So it was just like one of the few things that people actually had agency about.
Can I just wrap one real quick note? There's other questions I haven't answered to, but I just wanted to add that it's, we're asking as a school district, we're asking for your support on this. It's very important, it's critical, like I mentioned. And I think it's important to note that if you have any questions about this, my name's Gary Myers, and just that my email is really easy to remember. It's just gmyers@helenaschools.org. And I know Karen Ogden is here from the school district too. If you have any questions about this, or if you run into anybody else in the community who has any questions about this, please send them to me. Because this has been, like I said, I think my family and friends are probably a little bit sick of me. I'm a little bit of a one-trick pony with this levy, in the last couple of years. But I love to talk about it. Technology was important to me when I was a classroom teacher. It's central to what we do, and I feel passionate about it, I'd love to talk about it. So anybody any questions about that, email, call me. I'm happy to have those conversations.
Let's give Gary and Jennifer. Gary, thank you. Yeah. And Jennifer, the League of Women Voters is putting together a forum for the candidates, Jenny. Is that STARS Act going to pass, Jenny?
It's a great question.
Here we are 70 days into this thing, and even you are still wondering, huh?
Yeah, I think it has a good chance of passing, but there's some concern that they might sine die before it gets through.
Oh, gosh. Well, thanks, Jenny. Stay with it. Stay right herd on them. Anyway, the League of Women Voters is putting together a forum with the school district candidates on April 16th. That's a week from yesterday, right? It's coming right up. I think it's going to be at one of the school district, Jefferson School. Karen, what do you know about it? Lewis and Clark Library. Oh, good. Well, that's where the league hangs out.
That's not right. No, we don't.
And that'll be.
We don't yet have a venue at Lewis and Clark.
Don't have a.
Where, do we know where it's going to be?
Oh boy.
We had a very short window. It was just announced, and it's the 16th or 17th, and we don't have a venue yet. We're waiting to hear back from the school district about Jefferson School, but maybe Andy Hunthausen has a space. I heard him talking about finding spaces for this, or doing things for the schools. But I think the Lewis and Clark Library space is not optional.
Well, you know, we've got a good audience here. I mean, we got people in the room who care and who stay on top of this sort of information. So please keep your eyes and ears open and plan to attend. And we can learn more and talk more and take an even deeper dive into this next Wednesday. Jenny will be there, Jennifer will be there. I'll just wrap up with this. I remember as a young man, I went to the governor's conference on aging one time. I think it was in Great Falls. And Francis Bardno was there. He was the longtime chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. I'll say the great and good Francis Bardno. And it was at the governor's conference on aging. And I remember he said to everybody, he said, oh, okay, and there was all people, aging people. He said, I want everybody to take out your wallet. He said, take your wallet out. He said, open that wallet up. He said, I'll bet you got a picture of your grandkids in your wallet. And he said, think about those kids and think about the education they need. And then go support your local schools. And now, I've got grandkids myself who are in the Helena school system. And I would just echo what Jennifer said. They've been very well educated, right from first grade on up. They're in high school now. But the teachers, the administrators, the system such as it is, has provided them an excellent education. And they're poised and ready to go out in the world. And I think that's by and large true for this community and our schools. So I don't, beyond me to talk about Francis Bardno or to pretend to be him, but I'll never forget that. Take your wallets out and open them up. I'll bet you got a picture of your grandkids in that wallet. He said, think about them when you go in and vote for the school levy. Gary can't ask you to vote for it, but I can. So please give us your thoughts and do that. Well, it's 8 o'clock, so I guess 8:04. Better knock off. Thank you all very, very much for coming.